So, hi there, here's another video. How much does a full renovation cost in Dublin 2020? It all depends. I know that that's an ambiguity of an answer, but we'll go through it and try to get some clarity. Okay, so what counts as a full renovation in the first moment? How do we clarify? How do we define? What's the scope? How do we subdivide? It's not a cosmetic refreshment. It's not a paint job. Cosmetic refreshment. No real new finishes, no structural changes, no wiring, no plumbing, kitchen, bathroom decoration. It's literally a paint job. That's all that it is. Maybe change a couple of skirting boards, maybe do that. An extension, this video is not about that as well, but often we have a full renovation as well with an extension, and that would be roughly most of the jobs that I do. So I'll keep that in mind at the very end. Okay, and if not, give me a call and tell me to get my act together and to say it. So cosmetic, 40 to 80,000, and I did a job once down Marion Avenue. Lovely client. And by the time that we were finished, new floors went in, new paint job went in, new garage doors went in, a bit of carpentry was done, no electrics was done, and all of a sudden the bill was 60,000-70,000, and you're kind of scratching your head and going, where did that go? When I drive past the job now, it's midway down Marion Avenue. But when I drive past the job, it looks well, but I know no major work was done to it, and that's just the reality of how things are cost and how overheads are cost and materials are cost. And that, by the way, that was a good few years ago, a long time ago. Mid-range be 80 to 160. Full rewire, full replumb, insulation windows, good looking finishes. You're not going to get anything more than that. So that is full rewire, replumb, but that's not taking all the plasterboards off. That's not going to air tightness. That is not going all in, and that's the problem. This is the problem. When you jump from here to here, it's usually around air tightness. Once you go to air tightness, everything comes off the ceiling, everything comes off the walls. Vapor barriers have to be put on, and that is the discerning switch. For me it is. You go all in on air tightness, then everything changes. So then you end up here, and you end up on the floor heating, smart systems, bespoke joinery. But the big thing is you end up with air tightness. So that can be up to 160 to 280, 350 depending upon the configuration. But you are looking at that for a 4-bed semi-D, and that's the reality. Superior homes, you can add another 40-50% onto this. Specialist materials, you never know what you're going to find. Did one job and everything was fine, then we started to notice a little bit of slippage and movement, and before you know it, all the internal walls had to come down, and we had to put structural studs in the whole house to prop it up. And one engineer actually told the homeowner that they should knock down the house, and thankfully we've got another engineer, good guy Eugene, who came up with a design. So they're the pricing ranges at the moment. Okay, what's included at each level? Mid-range, 80 to 160 grand. structural assessment but no real structural work. Remedies: full rewire. Part P, full replumb, air to heat pump. You will get 12.5 grand back on this. External insulation or internal dry lining. Internal dry lining is roughly half the price of this, but it's a lot more intrusive on family lifestyle. Windows, doors. For a 4-bedroom semi-D clad, you could be talking about 35 grand, and PVC you'd be talking about 25 grand. Flooring, tiling, painting, and new kitchens. And new kitchen can start lowest 10, probably go up to 25, and then you get into deluxe models all the way up to 100 grand. I once knew a guy, and his buddy was a contractor. He was doing a job for an embassy, and buddy rang him up one day and said, "I got a brand new kitchen for you. The ambassador's wife doesn't like it anymore." I think it was about 3 months old. A new ambassador came in, so they changed the kitchen. He got a brand new kitchen, and he never told anybody that he got it for the installation price for about 3 or 4 grand. So everybody was pulling their hair out, wondering why. So high spec additions, underfloor heating. Underfloor heating is going to cost you about 35 grand, because as one of my friends who got it, Claire gas woman, as Claire said, like they were digging the tunnel to Australia. It is literally that high. That is the build up of it, to go all the way down from your existing floor. So you got to build up with about 200 hardcore. You've got 120, 150 insulation. You've got sand blinding. You have a subfloor, and then you got a screed of 60-70 mil on top, where the actual underfloor heating coils go through and piping goes through. Then you come out to manifolds, premium kitchen, bathrooms, bespoke joinery. You can get a staircase for about 2.5-3 grand, and then you can get a high-end one for 10 grand. So all of these things are natural add-ons. Well, not natural, but they're certainly add-ons. So the 5 biggest cost drivers, and this is why I would say, if you're going to do anything before you jump into it, get an engineer. Even if your house is structurally good, get a building surveyor, not a quantity surveyor, although I don't want to discount our role either, but get a building surveyor or a engineer to come and check the house. Because this is, if you start to open up and things escalate, that leads to more work and more work and more work and more work. So there may be things that may be okay, you don't need to change, but I would, for the cost of a survey, I would certainly recommend you get it done. So then you have, what is your specifications level? How high do you want to actually go? Then your contractor, choice of contractor, your site access. If you're mid-terrace, that lady that I was talking about, Claire, actually saw a crane being pulled over her house. Not a crane, but a crane was dropping in a container down to the back of her house. So I managed to get it on video to send it on to her at the start of her project, and then scope creep once you get involved. But to me, this is the biggest driver of it. If you go with air tightness, all the plasterboards off the walls, off the ceilings, new windows, air tightness, vapor barrier, new floor, underfloor heating, new air to heat pump system, manifolds, then everything has to go back in, heavy duty installation. So it all goes back in. It all goes back in. So roughly what I think you can get done for 150 is new windows, external insulation, fireplaces, new windows and doors, I think it said that. This is for its MED. Bathrooms, new bathroom fit outs, new painting, some new floor finishes, maybe a couple of bespoke cabinets in, and that's roughly where you're going to top out. There's no, you may get a new boiler in, but you're not getting underfloor heating, you're not getting air tightness. So if I had to pick a level, it would be at the 150 mark. But that depends on who you're dealing, how you're dealing with, and what is included in that. Why do two identical houses cost 80 grand apart? It's down to specification. It's down to how it was maintained over the years, structurally good, roof in good condition, previously work has been done incrementally, and existing wiring is good. And then you get into no maintenance, dry rotten floors, roof needs to be replaced, previous extension, poor foundations. I was on a house out in Killiney and I was chatting away to the guy, and I had no idea why we were at the back end of his house, but we were chatting away anyway. Oh, there's something to do with drainage, but we were chatting away anyway, and we went to find a manhole. So we started digging down by the back of his house. His house was off the foundations. His house literally was not tied into the foundations, and and as far as he was concerned, so be it. So that's where we are on it. The hidden costs people don't necessarily realise. VAT's at 13.5%, so that can be up to 20 grand. That is not included. So then professional fees, 10 to 15%. You tend to find that architects are usually around 8%, engineers about 7 or 8%, quantity surveyors about 2%, engineers, well, it depends. When I said engineers, if an engineer was running the project, he'd be the same cost as an architect. Why? Because he's an awful lot more due diligence to do. And one of the biggest reasons is because his personal indemnity, professional indemnity, is an awful lot higher and costs an awful lot more because they're certifiers. QSs are not certifiers. And then contingencies, and no matter how often we say this, this is a reality. I tend to find that it's down around 10%, and we have to be honest. What's a contingency? What is client driven, I want new, or what is site driven, I need? And you have to be really honest with that, because sometimes I had a client and she kind of had a housewarming party, and she was telling everybody that all of her contingency was blown and went up by 150 grand, and she was kind of we had a chat later on. I said, your contingency was 12.5 grand. Everything else you bought was new. you had underpinning on either side of your mid-terraced house, but apart from that, and you had a bit of drainage, maybe 15 grand altogether. Apart from that, there was nothing new. So you can't say that it went extra. You drove it all. She just started laughing. Gas woman. So she was a lawyer. Wouldn't want to mess with her. So how to read a contractor's quote? Is the VAT included? Are the preliminary sums flagged clearly? What's in for bathrooms allowance? Is the program stated? Very hard to get a program out of builders. Very hard. A lot of them get up at 6 in the morning. They work until 6 in the evening. By the time you see a builder and he arrives at your house at 8 o'clock in the morning, that guy's already got 2.5 hours worth of work done. By the time he's answered emails, gone and got supplies, coordinated them, coordinated labour, coordinated subcontractors. And as one banker once started to me, he said, Jesus, you have a banking hours. And he had no earthly idea the hours that we were putting in. None. None. So you have to be aware of that as well. Are all the trades covered, or is just the builder? And is there a contingency? If you tell the builder there's a contingency of £5,000, you can be guaranteed that's done. That's done, that's spent. The perception is that's part of the price, and he will find some way to get it. So it's a trade-off of whether you actually want to be as transparent. It depends on the relationship, and it's subjective. The VAT, often quoted without it, professional fees missed, furniture and soft, these are not part of the budget. External works, driveway landscape and specialist trades, realistic PC sums for kitchen, bathrooms, and any contingencies. So you have to read what it is, and you may want to actually take control of that process itself and actually do one yourself. What I mean by that is embed the information into the builder's tender if it isn't already there. So cost plan, I do cost plans, big fan of them, just for clarity, for honesty, for integrity, to include everything, to get a roadmap of where you're going, what isn't, and what is included. So scope increase, structural details and client spend and PC sums are big drivers of change from cost plans plus hyper inflation at the moment. So one has to be totally honest around that, and the cost plan you get now, you need to build a contingency in for all of that, and you need to be as realistic as you can, and you need to identify the risks associated. So I do cost plan services, but I also build them in as a client-based pack information. That's the best, as a resource pack information. So what's mine? Full elementary cost breakdown, fixed cost versus provisional, written cost guide, fees, benchmark, and current rates and allowed. So that's kind of what mine. I'm gonna think of. If I don't have a video, I will do a video on it. Cost plan fees, $650 to $950. $650 is, give me a very rough idea, Rory. That's what $650 is for. $950 is, give me a very detailed one, Rory, including all my risks and all my variations. This is just a drive-by viewing based upon scientific analysis, based upon square meters, breaking it down into expected cohort units, explaining what it actually is, and that's what it is. So then trying to understand gaps between initial tenders, one fee up front, and best to do this before tender. Best to do it twice actually. I do it a couple of months before going to planning, so people got some sort of accuracy, and then I do it if I'm the employed QS. I do it once my bill of quantities is done. I price it up as well, so you have more cost certainty when the tenders come back and you got real comparison against other contractors, so you know where you are. So now the $6 million question. And I said I'd say to you before, what does a full refurb of a 4-bedroom house in South County Dublin cost with a 40-metre extension? And it costs about $500,000. It costs about $500,000, and that's or up to $650 if you're all into full mechanical fit out, full refurb, plumbing, electrics, insulation, alu-clad windows, and total air tightness. So they're the rates at the moment. A little bit hard to believe, but the upside of that is people are earning a lot of money. So with that becomes a slight escalation in costs, and the inflationary cycle is continuous, and there's a slight upheaval in demand with it, and that puts pressure into the demand circle. So, and then you have Ireland as a small little open economy, which we know, and we're not in great controllability of our finances due to our interdependency and our openness. Okay, so if I can help you in any way, give me a call, get in contact. Nice chatting to you. Okay, thanks, and I really appreciate your time. It's the most precious thing we have. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it. Thanks, folks.